So first of all, I want to start off and thank all of you who filled out the survey responses. I really appreciate it. It helped us, gather some themes of what we should be looking at covering today. So thank you very much. I also want to take the opportunity for everybody on the panel to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their backgrounds. So if you can all go ahead.
Sure, Jonathan Sackheim, Grounds for Promotion. We started about 7 years ago. We've got 4 of us up here. Probably our 4th SearchCon, so sorry, Jim, for missing the first one. How many up? Is this the 5th or 6th year?
I'm leaving now.
You gotta wait till he left.
And yeah, we specialize in, we do about 75% of our business is online advertising focused on lead generation. That could be B2B or like calls for dentist appointments or filling out forms for that kind of thing. So thanks for having us on the panel.
Yeah, hi, my name is Jason Zotara. I'm with 1026 Media. We are a paid advertising agency in downtown Denver, focused primarily on Facebook ads, Google ads, Instagram ads, anything in the paid media world. We also do dabble in SEO and other services when clients ask for it. Started in 2012, and we work with e-commerce, healthcare, travel, technology, and higher ed, some of the clients that we work with. But appreciate you guys having me here.
So I'm Steve Hammer, run Rank Hammer. We're actually a virtual agency. I live up in Dillon, right around the corner from here. We do full suite digital marketing. I was the guy that was actually traded from the SEO panel to the PPC panel, and you'll notice no one went back the other way. So take that for what it will. We've been around for a little while. We were the 2015 Small Agency of the Year. And we continue to work to meet our clients' needs in every way we can. Our motto is kind of, how can we help? And if we can, we do it. It's that simple.
And
well, welcome.
I'm Sam. I'm from Pico, and the name came from a drunk night at a Mexican restaurant, if anybody's interested. And I've been doing a paid search from the days when Google walked in and said they're going to be the next big thing. So roughly 25 years now. So been around for a while and really honored to be on a panel with these guys today and going through some of the themes that you guys pulled out in the survey. Just so you're aware, those themes basically were automation, bidding, audience targeting, ROI, tips and tricks, of course, and social platforms. And there was 1 or 2 in there about voice search as well. So we're going to try and get through what we can. But everybody here is going to be available afterwards. I'm sure they're all going to be out there having a drink later as well. So feel free to reach out to us afterwards as well. So off we go. First topic. What bid strategies have you found to be successful?
You got the mic?
I got the mic. I tend to not use the built-in ones. I tend to write scripts to make my bid strategies rather than the built-in ones. I have a little bit of a trust issue with a lot of things, mostly when it starts with goo and ends with goal. In general, when it comes to whether they're actually after my best incentives. So we've developed our own bid models, and then we can modify based upon that. It is based usually on CPA or ROAS or something like that, but it usually factors in some other factors like position, which I'm not happy that they're removing that for because I use it as a damping factor. But in general, we've developed our own. We find the best results from those rather than the out-of-the-box ones.
Go ahead. I don't want.
Yeah, generally the same answer is we've definitely tested a lot of the bid strategies that Google puts out there and have seen typically worse results than if we do manual. So it's just a matter of how sophisticated you want to get when you are doing your manual bidding, and it's as deep as you want to go. And we haven't. One of the agencies I used to work at, we would pay for like a tool like Marin, but given the cost of those tools, we feel like they're not necessarily worth it. Be interested to see if you have any other opinions on that.
Actually, we found the same.
Yeah, so for us, we always look at it per client and per objective. When we're thinking just Google, obviously there's Facebook and those other channels as well, but We also look at it depending on the search terms, the keywords that we're going after. And if we want to drive more of the brand awareness, the clicks to the website, then we'll go more on the click side, maximize clicks. And then if we're looking for more of that bottom of the funnel, like buy a Honda Accord type of keyword, or where to buy a Honda Accord type of thing, then we will go after the conversion side. So I think it really depends on the keyword, the search intent when it comes to Google, but also Facebook as well if you're driving brand awareness or conversion. So.
I want to add one thing. Believe it or not, because there's all those built-in ones, right? The one that I call mutually assured destruction, which is the target impression share one, where if you get like 2 people that are doing the same thing, I've actually had that work for positive ROI, believe it or not, but only in a very, very, very small circumstance, but where somebody with a really big ego wanted to make sure that no one else was bidding on their brand. It worked. But the built-in stuff can work, but you've got to be really, really careful with it and be strategic about
absolutely.
it.
Yep. Oh, go ahead.
And one specific use case, like maximize clicks, I think it will maximize your clicks, but you only want to use it when you have, you can't spend your budget. So if you have $5,000 a month and you're only spending $3,000, you could change it to maximize clicks, and it'll drive up your CPC real high, real fast. It'll spend your money for you. So it may not maximize the number of clicks you're getting for your budget. It might maximize your total clicks if you have more budget than you can spend.
I know we've tried out maximize conversions. So it's not a max CPA. It's just basically saying, can you get as many conversions as possible for this specific budget? We have seen it work on one client out of all of our clients. So, I haven't really seen it work that well. Then we tested it on another client knowing that it was working, but it was horrific. Like as soon as you took that off and you saw what Google was actually bidding at, because remember when you put these rules in place, you can't see, there is no transparency into what you are bidding. So if you do try any of these techniques, it would be a good thing for you to then turn it off. So you can actually go and see what Google's ended up bidding you at. I mean, we had some keywords coming in over $100, and I'm like, hell no. We're just going to go back to manual CPC. The other challenge as well with any automated bidding system is, also take into consideration holidays, sales events, Black Friday, tax days coming up. And also, I don't know about any of your clients out here, but we have many clients who decide to just randomly take conversion tracking off of their pages, and if you've got an automated bidding rule running on something where your tracking is inaccurate, you've got a serious problem. So you need to it cannot just be a set it and forget it thing, ever.
I was just going to say that, like with anything with automated, it's all about, you got to keep your eyes on it, pay attention. Like we've gone from enhanced CPC to optimize conversion or maximize conversions to CPA, right?
Yeah.
And because a lot of times it has to have enough data to be able to have the machine learning work, if that makes sense. So yeah, you always have to pay attention, and kind of like with you, we have a love-hate relationship with Google, and so you can only trust them for so long, right? And I also believe that at times your website should be focused on making the conversions, not betting on Google to optimize that, right? So that's why when I say getting clicks and getting traffic to the site, if you have a great website that's optimized, then it's going to convert. You don't trust Google to bid on what's converting, if that makes sense. Oh yeah, sorry.
So one thing when you're using some of the automated bidding rules, a little tip and trick that I've seen, because I literally was just auditing somebody this morning that was using these, switched them off, and so I could see what they were bidding on. Well, guess what the search terms were that were helping with their CPA? Their brand. Their brand was getting them the conversions cheaply while everything else was not working quite as well. They just paid a premium for their own brand advertising because of that. So obviously, if you have a brand, make sure you're well negatived in that section, or you're going to paying way too much for your own clicks.
Yeah, too, I think, Jason, you mentioned it earlier as well with regards to you can't just put like a max CPA strategy across every single campaign in your account.
Right.
You have to determine what the goals is for each single category that you're advertising in, and determine, okay, well, brand, we don't want to really put anything on. We just want to make sure we're in the best positions. While on something else we do have a significant amount of conversion volume, then maybe you can try out the max conversion. As I say, it's working well for one of my clients. But you've got to be careful on anything automated.
Yep.
And then one way to save your bacon, sometimes those things can get a little out of control, is setting up the alerts so that you're getting an email if something goes haywire, and it kind of wakes you up and reminds you need to fix that rule.
Yes. It's a good reminder to everyone, though. A lot of people don't use alerts. So, it's a great tool out there to use, from Google. We had a great question from the audience with regards to how can you ensure a quality score does not suffer when you're using levels of automation?
Go for it.
Well, I know there's scripts that you can use, and also just I think managing, right, and paying attention. And again, if you're going to use automation, take it with a grain of salt and know that you can't set it and forget it. But there's ways of monitoring scripts to get notified if you are. Things like that would be one. That would probably be the biggest thing there. Checking and always being cognizant of your quality scores, because obviously, or not obviously, I always say that, but that could skyrocket costs by that. So,
Controversial statement. I don't care about quality score. I really don't. Why? Because we use exclusionary ad copy sometimes, which actually says, hey, if you're in finance, if you don't have great credit, don't come to us.
attract the Pell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's really just go away. I don't want it. That's gonna hurt your quality score, but it's going to raise your and lower your overall conversion costs. It's going to bring you higher quality leads, et cetera, things like that. So quality score should not be your end all and be all metric.
Mm-hmm.
So soapbox, I'll get back off of it. That said, I always monitor what the CPC is doing, because that's the biggest bellwether. The big metrics that are there, the CPC and what my CPA or ROAS is, are the things that matter the most. When those things are starting to fall out of line, that is when I'm going to go diagnose back into quality score in the first place. So, it's never the thing I'm looking at first, it's always the thing I'm looking at third.
And one thing that's nice to know is what your historical quality score is, and that's kind of tricky with Google. So having a reporting platform that archives that, takes a snapshot every day when it gets its daily data from Google, so you can see it over time and do tests. So you can test landing page keywords or match types or ad copy, different things like that, and have a snapshot of that quality score is nice to have. So we use Tap Analytics by a company called TapClicks. We put it on that Google Doc that Jim sent out. And I think it's tinyurl.com/search tools or search contools. So check that out, and we love that reporting platform. It can give you that historical quality score as far back as you're doing your reporting. So it's a good tool.
I should add, I'm contractually obligated to mention scripts at every single chance I get. There are scripts that have been written to write your historical quality score. I think Search Engine Land published it about a year ago, and it's drag and drop. Make it work. If that's a metric you want to do, that's a super simple one to implement, as are a few others. By the way, I love scripts.
You should get a shirt with that.
The other thing, just in general with automation, there's only so much we can do on the front end from an from our manual optimizations. We have to remember that anything you're doing automated, they have a lot more information on the back end than we have access to. Google's automating to a lot more things, right? That we're ever going to visually be able to see, because obviously that's the little secret sauce over there. So at the end of the day, I think from an automation standpoint, just to answer the question directly, I don't think quality score will necessarily be impacted or suffer necessarily from automation. But I do think you're going to end up finding other things will suffer, like CPC, for example, when we put it into automation. It's not to say, it was the automation was horrific, the CPC was horrific. And, we know that we can get those conversions in for the client much cheaper by switching that back to a manual bidding process.
Yeah,
sorry.
Sorry, I'm doing it again. The process that usually goes in is I've got broad match, my target CPC starts to rise because of my automation. I start to match for broader and broader things that make no sense, my quality score. That's the use case that leads to bad quality score and bad conversions and sees automation go down. So like anything else, don't use too much broad match if you can avoid it. That's just general PPC 102-ish, certainly not 101. That's the big thing, and especially when it comes to automated stuff, because that's where the stuff does fly. Phrase and broad match, modified, and exact, those are great because you at least have enough control on them.
And I think to your point earlier as well, you mentioned, Steve, about click-through rate as well. If you really take into account click-through rate, sometimes you actually want to pre-qualify the click. So to your point, you actually want to say something to stop people from clicking on your ad, because at the end of the day, you have to remember your client's time, right? So now your client is responding to a ton of junk leads. And, while if you had written the ad copy differently and were less concerned about some of those elements, you would be in a much better position and your client would be happier and their teams are not wasting their time either. So it's a balance, right? And you have to just understand what's important to you.
Yes, we call it attract and repel.
Yep.
When it comes to ad copy.
Love
I
that.
like that. And another thing you can do within that is,
I'm just
giving
gonna hold
away.
it.
No,
Just
sorry,
keep holding
sorry.
it. No, you're fine.
The call-out distinctions are great for those exclusions. So if you've got like a credit score minimum if you're in finance, or if you've got a minimum number of parking spaces for a parking company, true story, true client that I have, whatever your minimum is, you can put those sorts of things in there as qualifies as call-outs, and they tend to show up and do the right thing, so you don't kill your copy in the process.
Particularly for anything that's a luxury product as well. Because the next minute you've got everybody wanting to go on a private jet. And then they realize how much it costs.
You're right. Yeah.
So I'm going to move off from sort of like automation bidding and that for now, and move on to more of like audience targeting and some of the strategies that you guys have been using for audience targeting. If you can sort of go into that. And when I say audience targeting right now, it could just be affinity, custom affinity audiences and stuff like that. Another part of the question that I wanted to cover is how do you use your actual customer data? So there's two pieces to this conversation. So one is like the preset sort of audience targets that you can put in there, or your custom affinities. And the other side is your actual data that your clients have available to you. And don't think of it as just emails, think of it how you would actually break out that data into meaningful segments based on, say, purchase history.
You have the mic.
It's me again. So I adore all of the audience segmentation, and I think it is one of the areas most underutilized by PPCers. And there's a reason for that, is because we don't normally think that way in terms of the traditional marketing of who is the persona I'm trying to reach? What is it that they're doing? What can I do to reach them and scale them and talk to them and do things with it? So the first thing is business to business. It is such a godsend. We have over half of our clients are business to business. It's really easy to pick those people, put them in market. Literally, it's 10 times the click-through rate and conversion rate. 10x when we go to custom audiences. It's amazing in terms of its performance, but it tends to be underutilized. Second really creative way to use it is to look for affinity audiences that are related to what you do and use that vernacular and language. Although it's a terrible example because everybody jumped on it, but you could very easily, if you had a product that somehow had a tie-in to Avengers, even if it were a finance product, at least using some of that language and tying into a movie buff, if you knew they were into it, you can do crazy stuff like that and start to talk your customers' language in ways that are beyond just buy now. So we use affinity audiences. That is a terrible example, actually, but we use affinity audiences to do that and look for, are they bargain shoppers? Then I'm going to talk price more. Are they movie buffs? And then can I find a tie-in? Are they into food? And then maybe that's the offer for a business-to-business client that I'm pushing out there of, hey, we'll take you out to dinner, kind of stuff.
You need to call them infinity audiences.
Yeah.
I don't want you always go last.
That's cool. So yeah, in terms of the search side and then the, like say, Facebook or Instagram side or
That's what I was gonna
display
talk
side,
about, yeah. But go ahead.
It's pretty fascinating to see the shift from going from more like a keyword and geo-bidded type of thing in search engine advertising to going more towards people. So if you, like a hypothetical is you have say 10,000 people in Denver that are searching next month for kids dentist in Denver. And how do you find the best, people within that 10,000 set? Some of them might be too high income, some of them might be too low, some of them might be too far from the practice. And so there's a lot of different adjustments you can start to do to whittle down that 10,000 people that are searching that keyword within Denver in terms of age, parental status, gender, time of day, zip code, and probably one or two more things I'm forgetting. But it's basically putting in those, what we're kind of considering micro adjustments to those different demographic aspects and then whittling down that pool. And so you're basically going to end up bidding higher for the best people in that 10,000 and lower for people may still be able to show an ad for somebody who's a little further away and maybe slightly out of the income bracket, but or maybe not quite the right age. You're paying less for that person than you are for that perfect person who you totally want to see. So it's kind of bringing the Facebook model and display audience models together with search. So it's kind of an exciting time for that.
Yeah, I know this is a search conference, but we do a lot of paid social, and we do with search as well. But search, as we talked about, is more keyword intent, search term focused. So when it comes to social, we look at it from an audience perspective. And so what we do what we kind of pride ourselves on is really understanding the audience of our clients. And it's not necessarily that Sally's favorite color is blue, right? It's more about what type of content are they engaging with, what is their demographics, how can we segment those audiences to the right ad copy or the right campaign, for example. So we have a health client right now that they have all these HubSpot leads, and we've broken them up into the different segments and that's why I think as great social has a great power when it comes to audience targeting. I know Facebook has taken out some things around income, which kind of sucked, right? But they have some different things you can use around percentages, but not to get into that. But we really like the audience side of it, and one more on social than I would say search. But yeah, obviously when you're looking at things like auditing somebody's account, like when you're looking in GA, some of those things, like trying to understand who their previous audience is, because working with a lot of clients, I find that there's a misconception of who they think their audience is and then who their real audience is or who they want their audience to be. And so sometimes I'm going to make t-shirts. I still haven't done it yet. Don't steal it. You can. But data doesn't have feelings, right? And that's how we run our business. It's not about what I feel or what any of my team members feel, even though I appreciate that. It's what data shows. And so using the data when it comes to audiences, their affinities, what the income, demos, things like that, that's where we use a lot of the audience. So looking at it more from a social perspective versus just a search.
And I think too,
Sorry,
to
go ahead.
Jason's point as well, on that side of things, it's just in Google Analytics, you can actually see the audiences that are coming through from your traffic. You have that report in there, and it will tell you exactly, at least from the Google side of things, where they fall into, these different categories. And then it helps you think outside, I hate saying outside the box, but it makes you think outside the box of different strategies that you can take with regards to targeting. Like you mentioned, Avengers, for example. Love Avengers. And
yeah, you're a dentist, free Avengers toothbrush with your first visit.
Like that kind of thing. So there's a lot of fun things that you can take a look at from there. You'll be surprised how different your audience is. And another thing that we've seen successful, at least from the audience side of things, which is also a little out there, is actually, a lot of you know who your influencers are, right, in your industries. So some of the awesome things that you can do there is actually find their Facebook URL, right, of your influencer, their Instagram, all of that. And you can build a custom affinity audience in Google to hit anybody and build a cookie pool out of people who are going through to your influencers' pages. So that's another fun route to go to sort of tie in a little bit more between social efforts, even your organic efforts, that kind of thing, and really sort of tying all of those, pieces together into a custom affinity audience. So.
Do you mind if I ask a follow-up question for everybody? So Facebook has been taking away a lot of our best tools, let's face that.
Yeah.
How has that affected all of our performances? And I won't answer it first. Ha.
So I think, I mean, the good news is they let us know, I guess, so we could take appropriate action. We have always found, I'll just take one of our clients is a volunteer travel company, and we've always just found Facebook to be a better cost per acquisition than Google has been. And so even though our cost per click has maybe gone up a little bit because we're not as defined, what we've been able to do is create lookalike audiences, and using lookalike audiences, and I shouldn't say this, but we like display, but we use display for retargeting and remarketing more than just straight display. So with that being said, it has made it more difficult, but I feel that if you're able to find lookalike concept, right, lookalike audiences, similar audiences, that gets you a little bit closer to where you want to be. For example, income, you can do like top 15%, top 5% in zip codes. So that gets us to a little bit more affluent, like you were saying earlier about luxury brands. But yeah, it does definitely, we haven't seen it a big difference, just a little bit of uptick in cost. But it's still beating Google and other channels from a cost per click and also a cost per acquisition. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah.
And to add to that, the lookalike's great. I think it's made us do a little bit more work in terms of there's the 3 different types of objectives with awareness, consideration, conversion for the different ad types. So I think it's caused us to, typically we could skip further down the funnel towards getting to a smaller, tighter audience. Well, you don't have that luxury in some circumstances now. So you can start up higher with an awareness ad and then create a pool of people based on who interacts with the ad, watches a certain percentage of a video, something like that. Target those people or target lookalikes of those people. So that's one way you can help get around that.
You want to answer now since you asked?
Oh yeah, I guess I can answer my own question. Awkward. With our clients being primarily business to business, but although we do consumer as well, that it has hurt us dramatically.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I love to do was be able to target people who are in the consideration set for that and high income and all that kind of good stuff, because that was who we were going after. Now I've got to go through and pick out like 500 job titles when I'm going to go after somebody, right? Like, CMO and this and that. You just end up with such a massive list. As that list is built up, I've gotten better with what we do, but man, it took a while. We watched just Facebook do that and then come back afterwards. So I have a love-hate relationship there.
So, go ahead.
What I was going to say, and 1% on a lookalike audience for a business-to-business, that's a lot of freaking people for a business-to-business. Almost every segment we're in is way smaller than that. So
I would say, just in addition to that, the client I was talking about is on the B2C side, and we definitely see more success on Facebook on the B2C side. So B2B, that's where LinkedIn comes in, right? And being able to still target those job titles, still target that demographic on LinkedIn, even though, don't get me started on their platform and the clunkiness of it. And, but at the same time, if you know what you're doing and you've got enough experience in there and your client and expectations are there from a client perspective of how much they want to pay per lead, for example, like those leads are going to be highly qualified because you're drilling down into that target market. So for example, directors of marketing in the healthcare space, if that lead comes in, it might be $35 a lead, but if your target is 50 because they're very high quality leads and they're marketing qualified leads, that's where we've kind of shifted more to B2B on the LinkedIn side, even though again, I love Facebook and Instagram, but that just might help maybe extending out to LinkedIn.
I'm with Jason. We've actually got some B2B clients where we actually spend more money on LinkedIn than we do on Google, for example. And LinkedIn, as much as their interface is horrific.
Sorry, that was a little lunch coming back.
So as much as it's horrific, at the same time, there are other things outside of just like job titles and job functions that you could advertise to. Like one of our most successful campaigns in LinkedIn is actually targeting people who are active in certain groups.
I was just that's one.
So that is one of our most successful campaigns in LinkedIn right now. And the other thing as well is just being aware of some of the tactics that are available out there. So, there's the LinkedIn lead gen forms that are now available. And, if you're working really closely with your client sales team, you can even ask qualifying questions now. to start that conversation, down the funnel a lot faster and get to that MQL stage a lot sooner than someone just, filling out a small form on the website.
Yeah, lead gen, definitely. Especially if you're using like a HubSpot or a CRM, you can integrate directly into. Especially like Facebook too. We've been using those. But go ahead. I don't want to take too long on one topic. So.
No, you're good.
Good.
Can we sort of discuss a little bit more about purchase history and using that, and how you would segment and upload your own customer data into some of these interfaces?
Yeah, we can do that. So just getting as segmented a list as you can of your current customers or prospects. And recency is a big one, so it depends on this purchase cycle. Like sometimes for, say, dentistry, you would never go more than every 6 months. So you don't want to advertise to people who have visited or signed up in the last 6 months. But maybe 5 months, after they visit, you want to start marketing to remind them about their upcoming visit, or if they need to book another one. So just thinking through this life cycle and then breaking out the list into different types of purchases, frequency. Maybe your best customers, you want to give them a special offer or advertise a more expensive product to them versus someone who hasn't purchased in a long time. So there's a lot of creativity you can do depending on how big your list is and how much time and energy you have to advertise to them. The last part.
Yeah, especially with like e-com, right? Having repeat customers and repeat buyers is huge. And being able to, so a lot of times if you're selling large ticket items, it's going to be hard for someone to make that commitment on the first couple of touch points, right? So if you can get them in on a smaller product and kind of understand your brand and understand your product, that, hey, it's good quality, and then they're going to come back for repeat business, you sign them up on the email list and so and so. So I would say, understanding that it's, as you mentioned, a lifetime cycle of a client, a customer, and being able to understand the value of that when it comes to not only singular purchase in the e-com space, the multiple purchases, the comebacks, the referrals, going back to social, using social as that as well from the largest word of mouth of, having them refer friends and family to buying that product or service. So.
Yeah, I think what people do with purchase history and all of those lists is very much like what people do with remarketing, which is we're flippin' lazy. That's all there is to it. Here's everyone that's ever contacted us, purchased from us or whatever, go talk to them. That's literally the way I think a lot of folks think about it. And they don't think about it like tofu, mofu, and bofu. I still hate those acronyms, but
because now it's like this.
Yeah, I know.
It's not so true.
As you get people that are top of funnel and they've downloaded something and they've taken some interaction, I'll use like SearchCon if I were promoting that. People gave me an email address to talk about when the agenda would be live. Now let me reach back out to those same people and say, okay, the agenda is now live. By the way, early bird discount. And people that missed, that signed up there, we pull them out and then we go to the next folks. You've got to make that fishbone to make all of that stuff work and really think about where you're going after folks. What category did they buy? What sort of things are they after? Because if you miss all of that, you're just shouting a generic
message.
Generic message that just doesn't mean anything to anybody. And it gets ignored.
When you can. Yeah, so one of the things we enjoy doing is whiteboard storyboarding, right? And getting into the customer's journey from start to finish. And because especially if everyone here is on Facebook, but like if you go to a website, you get targeted and you see those boots and now it's like, hey, you got a discount, or hey, check out these, a similar product. So that's one of the things that is one of the reasons why I started a PPC agency is I really like that creativity when it comes to that. I mean, SEO is as well, no knocking SEO, but really it's that getting into the mind of the customer and the consumer and saying, okay, as a consumer, what am I looking for, and how do I get value? And that's really what it's ultimately providing value. So like you said, if you're just saying, hey, remarket everybody who visited my homepage or my website in the last 30 days, it's like, no, that's not really, or 60, whatever days it is. It's segmenting those to purchases, what pages, what products they might have viewed, and obviously having email tied to anything that you do, it helps tremendously too. It's probably, I think it's the highest converting medium out there. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that later, but tying PPC and SEO to email and other channels, like PPC can't live in a silo. As much as we love PPC, it's got to have supporting services. So, you have anything else?
Plus one, although that's dead now.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. You good?
No, I think the other thing as well is like everybody's got all of their email lists. But just so everybody's aware, you can also upload accounts into LinkedIn, for example. So say there's certain companies that your clients are desperately trying to sort of get in with or land and expand with. I mean, just put together a list. The biggest thing you have to remember with any sort of segmentation is if it's too small, you're not going to be able to use it anyway.
Yeah.
So, you really need to think on a larger scale. For example, if you're going to be uploading emails into Google, you need about 10,000. So if your segmented lists are lower than that, unfortunately, you might have to fall back to like that more larger sort of messaging tactic. But, the more segmented you can get and the more tailored you can do for those ads, and messages, the better it's going to be.
So I just want to add, and I'll send you it. I can send it to anybody who's interested. So the other day we did, we split up into 4 or 5 categories, and we had audiences, we had platform, we had objective, we had landing page, and then CTA. And what we did is assign letters, numbers, animals, and beers, I believe it was. And so what it allowed us to do was, it's actually really fun, is we have 1B giraffe IPA as an audience. And so it's more of the journey, right? And so splitting it up and really getting as detailed, right? Because, for example, as I was sharing with the healthcare client, is they have lists of folks, and that list, because they've interacted before, like you said earlier, like you don't want to send the same message to somebody who's already interacted with your brand. So it allows you to customize that message based on what type of audience they are and also the objective. For example, at top of the funnel or bottom of the funnel. And as I was sharing with you now, the customer journey is more like this and kind of the infinity line or symbol, I guess, versus the old funnel. But doing something like that was just, it's creative, it's fun, and it really allowed us to go back to the client and say, look, we built all these different opportunities for you based on all these different criterias. And of course we use beer because we're in Denver. I wanted whiskey, but my account director wanted beer. But
But I think the other thing as well is like a lot of people are thinking about how they should be targeting. A lot of people forget people you don't want to target. So just make sure you've got a really sort of exclude list of people you don't want to potentially target as well. Not just thinking like, okay, we want to hit these guys. Make sure you exclude as well. So moving on to the next topic. One of the questions was, what media and obviously it's different for every agency because we all focus on different things up here. What media produces the best ROI for you, and why do you think it would be that specific? Vertical. Not vertical, media.
do you have something quick? I'm going to think through that just for a second.
So there's a reason that I got mad at Facebook, because that used to be like my secret weapon for B2B, because it was so much cheaper than LinkedIn to reach those folks. And everybody dicks off at work with their Facebook, so you're reaching them just fine. So when all that stuff went away, it went from being a great performer to an average performer. Still for me, bread and butter is search. Get the bottom of the funnel folks, get folks that are ready in that purchase set. It's really hard to beat. The only challenge is you can't make more people search for your category. So, if it's something that's esoteric, you have to find ways to push it down. But generally speaking, I still can't beat Google and Bing search.
Yeah, so just quickly on kind of what we like to use Google search to capture the audiences and get the people to the site, and then we'll use social for remarketing. We find that combination has been working really well for a lot of our clients. So I don't know if that directly answers it, but as I was saying before, I think a lot of us, there's a fallacy out there in the agency world where we think someone's going to, or even on the client side, where they think, oh, they're going to see my product and they're going to buy. That's not really how it works, right? It takes 15 to 20, and it's not me, it's studies show, at least a minimum of 15 to 20 touch points before they even interact with your brand, right? So as I was sharing before, I think it's important to have a little bit of everything in your cog, right, of your wheel, and that allows you to touch the different points, the different areas that they're in, whether it's search. So for example, if they're ready to buy, right? 'Cause that's what's great about search is they're raising their hands looking, but like you said, you can't get more people to search for that. So that's just a little bit from our point of view.
I was just going to add to your side of things as well. Sometimes you might find that you might pause something that is maybe not performing as well, from a direct conversion standpoint. But as soon as you pause it, you see the influence of it on other channels. So it's important not just to silo things in, different segments, but also take a look at how it's influencing the entire funnel. Because you do not want to push that. You don't want to necessarily
just really quickly
say that again.
Say it again.
Say a remarketing list that's working really well for you.
view-through conversions
Yes.
are
Yep.
real. They happen. Now, they don't happen at the rate that they claim that they do. I usually bring them down to about 10%. We've done studies, that exact thing. Let's shut this off and see what happens. We watch our conversion rate go down. We look at what the view-through conversions were, and we attribute it back. It's usually 10 to 15 to 20% true incremental conversions on view-throughs.
Yes.
It's, like I said, it's not what they say it is, but it is real. So.
Well, it's one of the, just quickly, I can get back to, one of the things, because we have a Facebook rep, and when I was doing this talk, I was like, hey, what's something that, what is new or something that you guys are working on in Facebook? And one of the things that he shared with me was their attribution tool and their attribution reports. And so what it allows you to do is similar to GA, is it uses their pixel to be able to show attribution of all the different channels by using UTMs and so forth. So I thought that was really cool for Facebook to, even though they're a social channel, to be able to understand that there's multiple touch points along the journey, and to be able to now go into using a Facebook attribution report to be able to see, okay, hey, this came from organic search and this came from email, whatever that channel is, especially with assisted conversions as well. Obviously, again, you got to take those with a grain of salt at times, but I think, as you were saying, there's still conversions. So just a little, yeah, they're still real.
Yeah, and it's kind of the magic power of the number 7 touches to make a sale, and plus or minus 2, and that's also like the average number of things you can remember, like if there's items on a table. So anyway, it's been shown in the numbers in terms of Google Analytics attribution. If you're doing like at least a linear attribution, that the social channels will contribute a lot more when you look at them and give them not just last click credit. So looking at the whole picture is really important. And yeah, and then also outside of that is there's no hard and fast rule. Depends on the campaign, the client. Like we just launched a campaign on Snapchat that's doing really well. Normally you wouldn't even think of that. So yeah, it really depends on who you're going after. And we noticed that the highest age criteria you can go after in Snapchat is 35 plus. So it's like,
that's about
You're in the
sounds about
olds
right.
really fast.
yeah, whereas Facebook's 65 plus.
Thanks for
I
making me
think
feel old.
Statistically, to answer the question, I mean, it's organic search would, be number 1, and then paid search is number 2. I think the biggest thing, straight after that, is obviously social. But, I mean, outside of that, I mean, you don't want to just look at like, okay, this is organic search, and, this is, paid search. I mean, what in paid search? Is it Bing? I know everybody thinks of Bing as the red-headed child of search, but I mean, their brand new relationship, obviously, with Microsoft and Verizon is going to, bring them up quite a bit. So it's not something that we should ignore. Outside of social, is it Facebook? Is it Instagram? Is it Snapchat? So, it's nice that they bucket all of these in there and put these statistics to everything for us. But at the end of the day, it's just what works for each and every single client. So,
Yeah.
Another question. Obviously, our future audience is going to be millennials, right? So, and if you look at statistics, once again, about 51% of millennials actually make a purchase on social media, right? So, considering that's our future audience, I wanted to sort of go into a little bit more about just social commerce in general on, say, Instagram and Pinterest and, all of those opportunities.
2 minutes.
Okay, 2 minutes, go.
2 minutes.
Go.
2 minutes, go. If not, I'll do it.
I
love social commerce.
One interesting thing I want to part with that's totally off topic, and that is we started looking at all the search query data in Google Ads for OK Google to see how many voice searches there were. And we're starting to see a lot more of those, and that the cost per conversion is really good. So we're about, look at this talk caused us to look more detail at those, and we're going to launch some new ad groups here shortly with those queries as keywords. So looking forward to seeing how those do, and maybe we can talk about it next year.
I know, that was one of the topics that was on the list, but it's like, We got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll just be really quick.
We'll free for all, and I'm going to answer a different question too.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, this was actually one of the topics that I wanted to cover, and I'll just say that quickly again, with all the different platforms that are doing, Instagram and Pinterest and their shopping carts or checkouts. Sorry, it's just one of those things that we want to pay attention to. So it's still growing. It's just allowing our clients to not get people off of their platform and having to go to a site and then so, right? So there's pros and cons to that, but I just think social commerce is the next thing that we should look out for. But unfortunately, we don't have much time. So
so I'm answering a different question than everybody else. But the biggest tip or trick that I could ever offer anybody is think like a brand. Put the M back in SEM, because when you are actually marketing back to folks, it works so much better. My word, if you can just be something memorable enough where they're typing that in instead of your category, you are saving so much money. So be a brand, be something memorable. It is just the way we need to think now, especially with the audience and all the automation and everything else that can potentially come out there. It is the most powerful thing we can do. And we often forget about it because we worry about the SE part of it and not the M.